Play at Novabet.
Hello and thanks for tuning in to another show on irishracing.com. Bit of a change up this week. Joe and Vincent have deserted us, so it's just me and Johnny talking this week. Johnny, how are you keeping?
Like Factifile and Gaelic Warrior all over again, but one of us will stay the course anyway. I'm all good. How are you, Emma?
Good, yeah, good. I hope we don't start collapsing halfway through the show like Gaelic Warrior. But I suppose look, there's plenty to talk about anyway, so we shouldn't be short trying to fill time. I suppose kind of the first thing to kick off the show, I think, we go back to Monday last week, the Caldwell dispersal sale. I suppose it's kind of something you're kind of looking at the horses in the sale, and kind of I was finding it very hard to say what kind of price these horses were going to make. Kind of an unprecedented thing, I suppose. Kind of run me through your thoughts about how it went down. A very eventful day last Monday.
Yeah, I think in terms of national hunt sales, like I can think of JP McManus buying horses for like reportedly huge money, 500, maybe 600 grand, many years ago, and reputedly, if you're to believe, I suppose the stories, our Connor would have cost a lot of money. And at that time, I think Barry Connell, he was happy to pay good money for a very good horse, and he was quite unfortunate. Now, the suggestion was that Caldwell Potter, given his pedigree and his potential, could go for something similar to what he went, and it's it's not far off €1 million when you kind of convert it or whatever. And it was a fascinating story. The whole Caldwell story. I subscribe to the Phoenix every month, Emma, and Phoenix is kind of one of these unique anachronistic magazines where you don't know who the author is, and he or she gets kind of good stories, and he covers racing to a mixed degree, I suppose. Some good stuff, some not so good stuff. But it dealt with the Caldwell sale and spoke about the owners, and I still find this utterly perplexing, the whole episode. But it was very difficult for Gordon Elliott to watch these horses go to the sales, leave the yard, something he had no control over whatsoever, and then Caldwell Potter. And the story just keeps on giving. So he sells to a syndicate that involves Sir Alex Ferguson, which is, it is great for racing, really. I think joining Paul Nicholls having a very good horse. Gordon Elliott obviously is going to suffer, but Paul Nicholls having a good horse isn't a bad thing for racing. And then you get, less than a week later, Paul Nicholls saying that the horse won't be running at Cheltenham because he needs time to acclimatise. Now, this reminded me of, I used to go out with a girl who was a teacher, and one of the women she taught with was a bit of a character. And one day she called in sick of a Monday because she said she was jet lagged, having flown from London, right? So this reminded me of that. I was like, how do you need to acclimatise to switch from Gordon Elliott to Paul Nicholls? 5 weeks before a festival, 4 or 5 weeks before a festival? Now you're the daughter of a trainer. You're involved with horses. Maybe you can clarify this for me. But I considering Paul Nicholls has been, such if not an irrelevance, he's had so little firepower with the view to Cheltenham. I found this utterly astounding because this is a very good horse. His performance at Leopardstown has been boosted by the runner-up's performance at the Dublin Racing Festival. The pedigree we see yesterday with Brighter Days Ahead, it just looks hotter and hotter and hotter with every day. Exceptionally good horses like Mighty Potter before them. Maybe you can enlighten me.
Yeah, I suppose it probably depends on the horse. Like, you'd see horses there switching stable and running the next week. Other times, I suppose we saw it when Gordon lost the Shively Park horses that time. And Allen seemed to take a long time to get used to Henry's kind of setup. I suppose it kind of depends if it's a quirky horse. Now, I don't know a whole pile about Caldwell Potter. He seems straightforward in what he does, but it was interesting. Harry Durham, I think, came out. I saw quotes this morning saying the two he bought, Imagine and Molly's Mango, are aiming for Cheltenham Festival if possible, but I was finding it hard to wrap my head around, like, the paying the 700,000 for I know he's a Grade 1 winner,
What would
Caldwell
TJ
Potter,
Nagle
but
say? What would TJ Nagle say if he had Caldwell Potter tomorrow? He'd be like, oh no, he needs time. He needs time to acclimatise. You might go on holiday with him first.
I think, yeah, no, I don't think that he'd be getting too much of a holiday, but I thought, like, spending that money was kind of the Cheltenham dream. Like, you're buying kind of a ready-made, a short enough price runner in the Supreme Novice at Cheltenham. But yeah, to skip the end of the season now, I was surprised by.
The thing about Paul Nicholls as well is like he's actually running scared at Cheltenham now, and he's made Paul Nicholls like this is the first time I ever questioned something he's really said, in the sense of does he actually mean what he's saying here, because he's very forthright to a fault with the media, and he has effectively in recent years decided to kind of run away from Cheltenham because he thinks it's better prepare a horse for Aintree. Now this was an astounding development, because this is Paul Nicholls basically running scared of Cheltenham because of the Irish domination, but like maybe there's an element of that here where he's thinking the horse be better at Aintree, but Cheltenham for me is still Cheltenham.
Yeah, look, it's. I suppose I think the owners. I listened to podcast. The owners. I think it was their choice. They gave Paul said like don't rush him for Cheltenham, which I was surprised by, because it is the one you want to get to, especially spending this kind of money on a horse. But look, maybe I don't think it's totally ruled out, but yeah, unlikely he'll go to Cheltenham. And kind of talking about Irish domination, I suppose another one that came out during the week was the Grand National entries. I think 65% of the entry was Irish, 26 for Gordon. They've obviously gotten rid of the rule now. They were considering like limiting a trainer to 4 runners. That's not going to come in, but like it's interesting. Like you'd wonder where are these staying chasers in England, because I think without the Irish horses, the race wouldn't actually fill. I think there's only 33 English horses entered in the Grand National, which was surprising to me. Now, would you be kind of worried about that, like from a British point of view, if like they can't even fill their Grand National without these Irish horses coming over?
Oh, well, you'd have to be worried. Like it should be. Last year was what it's a third of the runners on the day were British trained, and like it really should be like I'm not sure what it was going back, but it should be sort of 75%, 25%. We'll say like the situation in Ireland is slightly different because the government kind of pays for half of the prize money here. So I think owners have become incentivized to send their horses to Ireland. Now you could argue the point that British racing is so uncompetitive now in some respects that you would be actually nearly better off having a horse with Nicky Henderson. But for me, Emma, this probably stems from the point sphere in Ireland. Like I'm sure I didn't go through the numbers here. I'm sure an awful lot of these horses obviously came from the point sphere in Ireland, and the change in dynamic of the point horses being prepped for the shop window of winning a 4-year-old maiden and then sold for huge money has changed everything. And they're not going to Britain, these horses now. They're practically like I don't know. It's rare that you hear of any good point horse from Ireland going to Britain. They're staying here, and they're going to an Irish trainer, obviously, and then a lot of them won't be quite top class, but they'll be good enough to. They'll be very, very good horses that run in the Grand National. And British racing faces a serious crisis. Like I mean, and this really exemplifies it. Like I don't get much pleasure from Irish domination at Cheltenham anymore, because I think in order to prosper, we need strong British racing, and I think they're trying to make changes to it, but it doesn't look great at the moment. The owners just don't really seem to be there either. You need almost JP McManus to kind of start sending more horses to Nicky Henderson, and he already is sending them a few, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I kind of agree on the whole Irish domination at Cheltenham. Like when it started coming around first, and maybe even 3-4 years ago, we started hammering the English, and it was kind of like when Man United fell down in the Premier League. It was great fun for a few years, but then you just kind of felt a bit sad for them after a while when they
Not a
couldn't
bad
get back
analogy,
up.
yeah.
But yeah, I'd have to agree. And kind of going back to the Irish side of things, then like I suppose Gordon got off to a flyer at the start of the year, but Willie 200 winners. I think the fastest he's ever reached it, and in Punchestown last Monday. I'm not sure what the record is from winners trained, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was pushing up on the 300 mark come the end of the season. Like his horses are absolutely flying. It's very hard for like the likes of Gordon to keep up with him now. But yeah, it's I suppose leading on from the Dublin Racing Festival, he hasn't slowed down at all.
No, and the way he trains his horses, like Willie wouldn't really have them ready for sort of October into November. Like you'd often see, yes, down Riley doesn't really have runners at that, and Gordon kind of would train his horse a bit differently, where they'd be ready earlier in the season, which would make sense as well, because Willie's really only kicking into gear as Christmas develops into the new year. It was interesting when American Mike beat Nick Rocket yesterday. That's Jerry Hannon in the commentary. He spoke about Jack Kennedy versus Paul Townend. I thought it was quite a good commentary, because I'd actually tipped Manila Kakuna in the race, and Sometimes when the horse that you've tipped is beaten, you kind of half lose interest. But as the two of them were, I was looking at the race then, I was like, Jesus, I was thinking it was a brilliant finish. I thought Paul Townend gave runner up a really good ride because they probably went hard enough in front and he kind of took his time and American Mike found again. But it was interesting that Jerry Hannon brought up the title race in it because Jack's having a splendid time. Hit the 101 during the week last week. Hit 100 during the week. Hit 101 the same day at Punchestown. But I suppose in his heart of heart he feels like he's still facing an uphill battle.
I suppose it will be. I think he's still around 10 or so winners ahead of Paul Town. I think the first time reaching the century in a season, which was a good landmark for him. But hopefully he can stay fit and sound. But like you'd imagine, even coming into the Punchestown Festival, like he'd want to have at least 10 winners ahead of Town, and because will he come up to that time of the year, he's not going to be slowing down. But I
I
suppose
think with Jack as well, it's just like, to be honest, if Jack should accept at this stage staying sound and giving it a good go. Like as long as he can have a run at, if he has a run at until the end of the season injury free, that'll be his best run basically in his career, I'd say, pretty much. And he's riding so well. The championship it shouldn't be a priority this season, as much as that might sound daft, because if Jack can stay fit, he's going to be the outstanding jockey, really. Like he's so good. He just needs a bit of luck and his day will come.
yeah, for sure. You'd actually forget how young he is at times. I think he's only 24, 25 at most. Like to have won the races he's won at this stage and be even competing for a title is some going. But we'll have just a quick look back on last week's race, and then I suppose start from we small chat about Punchestown Monday, but Wednesday you were in Fairyhouse. I suppose the biggest talking point from Fairyhouse was Corbett's Cross coming down. I think there was kind of a bit of people were getting a bit of a plunge on him for the National Hunt Chase after they saw Derek booked to ride him. It's kind of a question of where do you go now with Corbett's Cross. I suppose it wasn't his fault he fell, but what was your take on the run, and where might he go next, do you think?
Yeah, like if I owned Corbett's Cross, I mean, I don't have the money that JP McManus has, where he can kind of say like they basically swerved the Dublin Racing Festival, and that was the race we mentioned at the start that turned into a 2-horse race. With all due respect, like it looked a very hot race even at declaration stage with Grangeclare West in the race. It was going to be a hell of a race, but Corbett's Cross, I would have gone for that race. Like I think it's a grade one. They then went for a race that, in fairness, was a nice enough prep for Cheltenham, or looked a nice enough prep at Fairyhouse. The ground on the day, Emma, was I'd say it was as bad as you'd see at Fairyhouse. Even Peter O was saying it was kind of as bad as he'd in his time there. Was like the first race, I think there were 3 finishers. They were desperately tired, and Derek O'Connor, even though the horses and basically that were making the running that day seemed to be winning regularly, Derek was very keen to shut the horse off and kind of ride him like, he's often ridden like that, shut him off. But it ended up being a complete mess, really, because he ended up, himself and Jack's horse had a bit of a collision. The race hadn't developed. I'm not really sure what would have happened. I wasn't overly confident he was going to pick up myself. Now, there might be anything to that, but his odds went out for the National Chase afterwards. I don't really see why that was the case. I mean, I'd nearly put a line through the run itself, but personally, I would have run him at the Dublin Racing Festival. I prefer to go for a grade one at the Dublin Racing Festival than the bloody National Hunt Chase, being honest with you.
Yeah, he did do a bit of jumping around. I suppose he had that engagement and Sandown he could have gone for as well, but they chose to go for the easier option. Didn't really work out. But I'm a massive fan of the horse. I think, yeah, I don't know. I'd probably go for, I don't know where you go, but I'd say he'd have a massive crack whatever race he goes for in Cheltenham. I think he's probably getting a bit of unfair stick as well. I suppose talk about him as he's jumping mightn't be up to scratch, but the fall definitely was none of his faults during the week. But
like it was such a, like they were probably going as slow as he's ever gone in his life in a race. I mean, it was so bad, the ground. They were literally walking around, and I don't jump fences, but I imagine it's a completely different experience trying to jump a fence going at half speed.
yeah, wouldn't have suited him, I'd say. But just looking towards Saturday's race, and then I suppose talking about another kind of enigmatic horse, Shishkin was good winning the Denman Chase. Do you think he's kind of a live Gold Cup contender now?
I actually think he kind of is. Like, I had real reservations about Shishkin. First of all, I wasn't sure was he a real sort of out and out 3-miler, and as it turns out, it probably is his trip all along, and he's putting that blip on his seasonal return behind him. He looked. If you watch the race and running, he was trading very short the whole way. He got a lovely sit in second. Obviously, his price went down a bit because he actually jumped off. But I think, in fairness to Nicky Henderson, he called that afterwards. He said that's not going to happen again, and it hasn't looked like happening again. The form probably isn't great. Protectorate was pretty well beaten, and it was again a day when they were finishing kind of well strung out. But Shishkin has loads of ability on his day, and I honestly think this is a hell of a Gold Cup if he does show up with faster, slower, new and rivalry. Gentleman's Game, who's been prepped specifically for the race. Galpin Deschamps looking like he's better than ever, but will be coming back off some tough races this season, and also will probably be ridden a lot differently to last year, and bring in some decent British horses as well. And I think Shishkin's just going to add so much glamour to the race. I could definitely see him finishing the first three, the form that he's in, and for his age, he actually is quite unexposed as a staying chaser, and I think he would have won the King George as well.
Yeah, I suppose when he's good, Shishkin. But I don't know. I still can't really fully trust him, and I'd have to have a little bit of a worry coming to the Gold Cup after having a race on that kind of ground. It's just his head. I'm not
Mm.
sure. I'm not sure is he fully in it, and having to dig deepish. I suppose he won well now, in fairness, but having a kind of a tough-ish race on the lead up to a Gold Cup with a horse whose head mightn't be fully in it would be my question mark towards him. But like you were saying, it is looking like a brilliant Gold Cup, and I was down at Sharks earlier in the week as well, and they fancy Hewitt. They don't seem to think that Shishkin would have won the King George if he stayed up. I suppose they would say that, but there's so many you can kind of you bring into the Gold Cup picture, and it looks like kind of getting up. I think about 4 weeks to Cheltenham now, which it should be a cracker. But another kind of Cheltenham horse put his hat in the ring, Edward Stone. Look, I suppose he's kind of been written off. He's been beaten well by John Man a few times, but ridden different tactically. Went out in front, and he was brilliant. In fairness, you can't fault the performance much. Do you think the change of tactics might have improved him a bit, or is it just a lower quality opposition maybe?
Yeah, I think the drop and trip as well just didn't work out the day
Mm.
before, and changing tactics. But as I said about the day itself, I'd be wary of sort of the winning distance and that. And I know he gave a great feel on the day and all of that. And he did look on top of his game. There's nothing to suggest he should beat El Fabiola though. But he'll add something to the race, maybe in the betting without mark. I think this is an outstanding 2 mile horse that Willie has, and Edward Stone for me. This was probably his best performance of the season. He hasn't been able to really beat John Bon at his best, but I couldn't see him beating El Fabiola, to be honest.
No, I'd agree with you there. I'd say he'll be third at best. I can't see him reversing form with John Bon either. But I suppose a big talking point on Saturday then was the Betfair hurdle. The Willie Mullins hype horse coming into it. Well, I suppose the hype wasn't really great. I think it was the BHA mark that was getting everyone all hyped up about it. Didn't really perform on the day. I think he was reshod before the race. Kind of building up tension beforehand. Did you back anything in the Betfair hurdle, or were you drawn into the Mullins hype?
I actually tipped up. I didn't have a betting race. I tipped up Meeting of the Waters, or not Meeting of the Waters. I tipped up Paul Byrne's horse. His name escapes me now. The first string of Paul's that had also come actually from Eugene O'Sullivan and had run out in the Great Woods and ran okay subsequently. I actually forget the name of the horse now, but was a little bit disappointing. Was quite well backed under Brian Hayes, and yeah, like it was interesting. Willie has really targeted these good races. It didn't work out. The ground was really bad on the day again, and I think we had a good winner, to be fair. And his plans for Cheltenham are going to be interesting, but it's one of the rare ones where I suppose a Paul Byrne horse went over to a big race and disappointed. He ran 2 in the race and both were sort of well beaten, but it was very testing ground. And we had the drama obviously with the horse being reshod beforehand, but I think the winner showed his capabilities, and he's still quite unexposed if he does go to Cheltenham. I think they might be leaving plans up to JP McManus in that score.
I suppose there was the rare thing that the Paul Byrne horses were going over, and they weren't the Mullins plot jobs is what it looked like. They were kind of bigger price runners in it. But yeah, no joy for the Irish there. But over in Ireland, I suppose Willie didn't actually go to Newbury. I don't think he was in Navan to see Allegory Devassi win the opera hat. Sorry. Or sorry,
Nace
Nace.
even,
Nace,
yeah.
sorry, yeah, Nace and that Navan was Sunday. Nace, yeah, she bounced back to form now. I actually backed Mascada in this. I thought she was eye catching in the hilly way, but she just seemed to fall away. But I'd say the ground was fairly tough. But Allegory Devassi, I think, when she's good, she's very good, and she looked to be back to her best. Would you say?
Yeah, like she had been a bit disappointing. To be honest, again, I thought Paul Townend was very good here because she's not straightforward. She's her own way of jumping at times, and he kind of just let her at it. I think Mascada. I was very worried about her on the ground. To be honest, I don't think that ground was so testing. I thought there was some in the race. I found it quite a hard race to solve. Full stop. To be honest, and Allegory Devassi, who has kind of I suppose she had her no excuses really behind Impervious at Cheltenham. I sort of fancied her at Cheltenham, to be honest, to beat her, but this was a good confidence booster, and she can go back there now. And I think her confidence will be high. Riviere Detel, who can have her own jumping issues at times, she really gave it a good go, but she kind of had no match for her. 4 links at the line, and she wasn't completely extended as well. And I thought, in terms of her confidence, this will give her loads of confidence going into Cheltenham if she goes there, and a really good ride as well.
Yeah, it was kind of the one you'd like to see, I suppose, coming up to the festival because she had been well below form last time. But yeah, she'll give her plenty of confidence, like you said. I'd still really fancy Dino Blue for that mare's chase, though. I think she's probably one of my stronger fancies of the week so far. But kind of talking about good mares, bit brighter days ahead was definitely a highlight of the weekend for me on Sunday in Navan, not Naas, for Gordon Elliott. He's never kind of hidden his admiration for this mare. I think she might have had a few niggly problems, haven't seen her for a while, but there's kind of three very good mares novice hurdlers this year. There's kind of a lot of talk. People don't want the mares races in Cheltenham, especially the mares novice. But to be fair, it's shaping up like one of the most exciting contests there. You got Dysart Enos, Spider Days Ahead, and Jade de Grugy, and they've all been impressing on the run up to Cheltenham. How impressed were you by Gordon's filly?
Hugely, yeah. Like as I mentioned, the pedigree of her and that family, they're it's an incredible performance by the mare to produce these horses. And you're just watching her under Jack Kennedy. She absolutely cruised through the race. I think as sort of short price horses go, she was probably a horse that you'd never any worry about. And Jack rode her full of confidence. Gordon did a press or the stable tour with David Jennings in the racing post there to this morning as well, and he's gushing about her again. And I do think this is going to be a hell of a race at Cheltenham. She looks so versatile. Imagine her over a fence as well, ground wise, trip wise. She just seems to have an answer to every time. Hard to know how good she is as well, because even winning the last day, I wasn't sure, how she wasn't fully extended. She certainly wasn't fully extended at Navan, and she's a brilliant, brilliant talent. I don't know if that dam has anything else on the ground, because anything that she does have now is going to be like it's. I can't actually remember a national hunt mare with such an incredible success rate. And if Mighty Potter had stayed on the terra firma, how good could he have been as well? But I'd be opposing her with real reluctance wherever she runs, to be honest.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the dam. I'm just looking at her here. I think she's only had the five runners: French Dynamite, Indiana Jones, Mighty Potter, Caldwell Potter, and Brighter Days Ahead.
That's astonishing.
It is mental, and like the strike rate, I think Mighty Potter was winning at a 64% strike rate. All of them have won multiple races, of course. Like I don't know, does she have any? She must have a few coming up along. You'd imagine they'd be worth massive money. Like, I don't think I've ever heard of a broodmare being like, especially over jumps anyway, being so successful. Like what like I suppose you saw the brother going through the ring there last week for 720,000. Like if she went through the ring, like I mean, would she make the million? She'd have to, would she?
Yeah, the next mayor she produces will have to be called Taylor Swift or something like that, and after the Super Bowl. But like I'd say that must be pound for pound the best national hunt performance by a broodmare ever, because that's just insane how you get horses of that ability time after time.
It has to be right up there. Yeah, you wouldn't mind having her out in the back garden, to be fair. But
We haven't spoken about the Hunter chase at Naas as well, which I have to say was one of the most extraordinary finishes I think I've ever seen. I know what you meant of it.
it was wild. Billy can kind of get your heart racing. He's not a I wouldn't really be backing Hunter's chases, and I'm kind of glad I don't every time I see Billy running, because he just gets your heart pumping. But yeah, what did you make of it? He was a long way behind, I suppose, but that's kind of the way he has to be ridden, isn't it?
But he was like I mean, he must have been nearly 40 lengths behind at the second last, and then like I don't know what the betting and running, but like when he started closing in and it's on the line, like he looked an absolute certainty to go by, and it's on the line, and Ramillies was legless. It's on the line, looked like he was out in his feet, and then like he must have had 50 yards to go by him, and whatever happened then, I think it's on the line must have been completely island to an extent where he's like, oh geez, I actually have to win this race. Ends up winning by a head. It was the most extraordinary finish. Like Patrick Mullins was probably half looking after him at the second last because it was so testing the ground, and then he's suddenly realized, geez, I have a good chance of winning this. And if you backed him, then you're thinking like, oh, happy days! I can't wait to tell my mates about this. And then he's beaten. It was an extraordinary race.
Yeah, like in fairness, like when you see a horse coming from so far behind and he doesn't win, you're kind of saying, oh, the jockey gave him too much to do. But I think in fairness, the horse had plenty of time to go past, so that's not really an argument you can make. But yeah, he was Villeray. I like to watch him, don't like to back him. He's he's a bit enigmatic, I suppose, is probably a good word for him. But back to, what were we talking about? Oh, Navan. Oh, sorry, Hidden Valley Lake. The one from Rob Core. I'm kind of thinking, like, how many horses are they going to find for the stairs at this stage? Is it the type of horse they're buying? I think they must have. They definitely have 3 or 4 live contenders for the stairs. Would you be? I think Gordon was talking about splitting them up, maybe sending Irish Point for a champion hurdle. But like, I think you could run all of them in the stairs, and it'd all be probably under in single figure odds even. What would you be doing with them? Would you be splitting them?
Irish Point over the champion hurdle is an interesting one. I mean, it might make sense if Constitution Hill and State Man weren't there, but like it looks a ridiculous division there. Like if you've State Man, who has to be one of the best Irish 2 mile hurdlers we've seen, I don't think that's unfair to say. Yes, Constitution Hill's a lot better than him. So Irish Point, I'd be all over sending him for the stairs hurdle unless the ground, maybe leave him in the champion if the grounds were to turn up heavy. But I think on good to soft ground, he's going to have too much class for them on the day. Now, Hidden Valley Lake, it was a very good performance, but this was it was a decent trial for the race, but it was a race in which there were sort of question marks over some of them. I thought it was a very good performance. He obviously bounced back as well and kind of bounced back to the potential that he showed as a staying novice last season. And Rob Core are investing very. They might be putting good money into it, but they're getting some extremely good horses. Have really helped Mouse Morris as well in Indiana Jones among them. And French Dynamite in terms of sending him nice horses. But if I were Gordon now, I'd run Tiopu and Irish Point in the race because I think their chances will slightly hinge on the ground. But with Hidden Valley Lake, Darragh O'Keefe rode him with plenty of confidence. I think Darragh picked up some nice rides as well because Rachel was suspended for the weekend, and Rob Core, obviously, they have a relationship with him. And I thought the horse was probably getting a bit tired up the running, but he won with a lot in hand. Like he'd established his advantage by the second last, and Darragh was able to go after him, stays really well. I don't know if they've completely given up on chasing with him, but if he went to the stairs hurdle, he'd have a realistic place chance. I think I doubt he'd have the finishing toe of Irish Point.
Yeah, he must have got a bit of a rattle the first time he fell or something. Maybe they just said to go back to hurdles afterwards. But like you were saying, that the team they have of horses, and they're kind of relatively new, I suppose, to ownership. They're in the Rob Core, under the Rob Core banner anyway. But like you're saying, they've got live chances in so many big races at Cheltenham, and like they've Bob Ollinger, Gentleman's Game, all these stairs hurdle horses. It's some going. Like I know they obviously have been investing well, but they're obviously investing pretty smartly as well because a lot of people spend a lot of money on these types of horses, but it doesn't always work out the way it's working out for Robcore.
Yeah, and in fairness to the Caldwell the boys, was it Mr. Logan who bought the horses? Was pointed out afterwards that the price that they paid for the horses relative to what they were sold for, they actually did exceptionally well. Because National Hunts, the price of good National Hunt horse, a store horse, the point winners now is so high. But Robcore have, I guess. I'm speculating, but I guess they're kind of going for Gold Cup type horses. Like if you look at the horses that they've given to Mouse, Gentleman's Game, French Dynamite, Indiana Jones, these are beautiful, big horses. That's actually been almost like a kind of a little issue with Gentleman's Game, and that he's had growing pains and that he's so big that they've been really unable to run him overly much because of his size. But the two horses with Henry, then they're really chasing types, but they've kind of by default gone back hurling for the time being. But they're buying very, very good horses, and it's good for the game as well because they're spread around. Willie has such domination now. I think with the horses that they're investing in, that I think with Gordon as well, like Gordon will reflect on the madness of what's happened with Caldwell, but I think the feeling I'm getting from Bective is that Noel Moran is really, really hungry to get good horses. He's even, established his own sort of broodmare band by Apple Jade and that, and it's only a matter of time before he has some superstars as well. So I think that Willie Mullins' domination isn't going to be a thing forever either.
Yeah, you'd imagine those things are all cyclical. And just talking about Bective, they had a lovely winner on Sunday. American Mike, I think Gordon said he's a horse who perplexes him. Like when he's good, he's very, very good. He tends not to see out his races all the time, which is kind of the worry if you were going back on him. I actually fancy we kind of talked about this race briefly. Manila Cocooner, I fancied him as well. He didn't really seem to see it out as well as you'd like to, but American Mike, I mean, I suppose he beat Factofoil at the start of the season, which looks like a massive performance now. Didn't really finish out his race against Gaelic Warrior. Would you kind of have what were your thoughts? And would you have questions about his constitution? Or I know Gordon said they'd change things up with him slightly. I think when he sees out his races, he could be up there with any of the best novice chasers. But he's just kind of hard to trust, I think, isn't he?
Yeah, he's hard to trust. I think between Jack, the vet, and Gordon Elliott, they kind of should be able to get some sort of feel for what this horse is, because it was, as Gordon was saying afterwards, like he said, like this is the horse that sort of has just completely perplexed him. Like, fact that his performance over Fact File in hindsight was extraordinary. People say Fact File needed the run, but he probably did, like he might have needed to an extent. But Willie Mullins doesn't train his horses to be 80% fit ever, really, and he beat him comprehensively that day. I was very disappointed with him at Limerick. Now, he was taking on a superstar, but he was beaten so far. I thought, yesterday his jumping was spectacular at times. Sometimes you're kind of looking at the head on and you're trying to get a feel for it. But Jerry Hannon said in the commentary as well, Nella Cocooner, I think Danny was kind of wary a long way out that the ground was so bad that he was maybe wary. Is there something coming from behind here? And it was a bit of a slog. Like Paul Townend had kind of held his horse up to get home, and Jack was kind of tracking Danny and always looked very, very happy. I didn't look at the betting running, but Jack always looked very happy. What was most encouraging for me was you thought he was going to be done up the hill, but he ended up actually winning readily enough. And I think the two horses here, they just might have a bit more ability than Manila Cocooner, full stop. But if they can keep him right, he's serious ability, this horse. He's talking about him as a national horse now. They'll have plenty of options with him, and he's going to have plenty of people support him and probably take him on if he goes to Cheltenham. But I thought in terms of yesterday, you'd be encouraged by virtually every aspect of that performance, and 2 out of 3 ain't bad either from his last 3 performances over fences.
Yeah, definitely a serious talented animal when he's on his day. But I think we'll try and wrap it up there. Just kind of quick mention, Willie Mullins had his first winner on Exeter. Fun, fun, fun. She was good there. But I suppose before we finish up, Johnny, any horses to follow that you might have seen during the week?
Yeah, I am going to give. This is a funny one now, but I'm going to give Velvet Elvis, who won the race at Fairy House. I think he might be underestimated. That everyone was talking about Corbett's Cross and what happened to him, and he was sent off 1-4. That, but um, this is a good horse for Tom Gibney, and Gavin Cromwell was very happy with him afterwards, and so was Keith Donoghue, and he can go back for the Irish national. And I know he's a good age, but I thought he was very good on the day. He beat a decent horse in the Clattereer as well, one with a fair bit in hand, and it's mad to give a horse of his age going forward, but don't underestimate him.
Very good, very good. I'm going to give one. Didn't actually win at the weekend. Barry Connell's runner, I think, in the Navan maiden hurdle on Sunday. Cloud Duval. I thought he ran a little bit keen. I thought 6-year-old first time out. Never ran in a point to point or anything like that. But just looked kind of green in the finish. Was kind of going up and down on the spot a small bit. But then when Helvic Dream kind of came from the back, Helvic Dream's obviously a very good flat horse. Kind of got his long overdue maiden hurdle success. But when Helvic Dream started running kind of beside him, it was like the ball kind of dropped a small bit with Barry Connell's horse, and he just had a galloping on towards the finish. So maybe even stepping up on trip might suit him better, but I'd say he'd be a lot sharper for the next day.
That,
Looks another nice
that,
one for
that
Barry.
race, like I was very keen to take on Ascending, who was favoured, because I mean, horse by Autad, who, like as I said, the ground was very bad. I was mad keen to take on Willie's horse. It was a Frankel who came off the flat, just on the basis that putting two and two together, it was probably going to be a struggle for him to get home. Now he was desperately weak in the betting, but he actually, like, I know he was probably very expensive in that, and with his, I think he stayed a mile and a half in France and all that, but he actually did very well in some respects. Like, he settled quite well. He didn't get home, but like, he'll have far easier tracks to negotiate, far better ground to negotiate. And Ascending, I wouldn't give up on either, because I think the ground would have gone for him. I just couldn't figure out. I was mad keen to take the two of them on, but I just couldn't figure out what to back in the race. And Helvic Dream, I was kind of worried that, as much as he was a mile and a half heavy horse on the flat, brilliant perform for no Mead, he wasn't really finishing out his races. And I actually think the form might work out okay, because Gordon's horse was well fancied, and as you mentioned, your horse as well produced a very nice performance.
Yeah, I'd say it was a decent maiden hurdle, and you know, Willie's horse pulled fairly hard, so you'd imagine you could probably forgive him for that one. But we'll wrap it up there anyway, Johnny. Thanks very much for all your contributions. We'll be back with another show on Friday. Looking forward to the weekend's racing. If you like the channel, make sure and like and subscribe.